What's up, everybody? It is Andrew Esquire, American attorney. And of course, this is Legal Mindset. We teach you to be your own judge. This is one that I was planning to do a little earlier this week. And, sometimes circumstances don't work out. Sometimes, hey, it's me. Sometimes it's you. But no, we've got it together here today, which is actually a really good story recommended to me by of all people, Nate the lawyer, who came into my DMs and said, hey, this is a really great story for you to cover. I'll put you in contact with the particular individual and cover it because it involves a crazy university story. It involves lawsuits. It involves potential defamation. So you've got all of these elements in here, in beating MeToo charges, all things that I'm interested in. So, and it's been a minute since I've done an interview. Because there haven't been that many interviews that have been compelling, but this is one I said, okay, it seems compelling enough, so we'll go with it. And so without further ado, I'm going to introduce Mr. Khan, who's over here. He's in an airport. Saif is in an airport, but hey, I'm glad you joined me despite me traveling, despite hanging out in an airport. Thank you so much for joining me today to talk about
Thank you for having me, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. So just can you give a little bit of background about yourself, like where you're from, where you came from, and how we got to the initial scenario? So build us up a little bit to the scenario here today.
Sure. So I'm originally from Afghanistan. I was a precocious kid, pretty smart, bright. I taught myself a lot of stuff. And by the time I was in my late teens, I ended up getting to Yale. It was a whole journey unto itself. And
late teens, so like what are you talking about? Like
17.
18, 17.
Yeah,
so you were there
17.
a little young.
Well, yeah, just on the cusp. Yeah. And so I applied, and it was, a fascinating journey getting to America, studying here. I ended up choosing neuroscience as a major and explored its greatness. Yeah.
What did you think about? So let me ask you a question. So this is a big one. So okay, you're born and raised in Afghanistan, right? So before you went to the Yale, right? You never been to Yale before you went there to college, right?
I did not.
You never went there. So what was your pre-existing perception of Yale before you went there? What did you think it was going to be?
Yeah, so I looked at it on Google Maps, and you do the whole Google Earth thing. So I had like a good enough idea of what the buildings were like. And what I didn't have a good idea of what the students were like. I honestly expected pure intelligence. And while that did exist, a certain number of students, a lot of the intelligence that I did notice and interacted with was bookish smart. Like these were kids that knew really big words, but didn't know what life itself was. They just would get stuck, and so I guess they could follow.
Can you give an example of that? Like, do you remember anything where like you're like, wow, these guys are smart, but they're kind of dumb, right? So like in a way, I say it like socially, right? So they've got high IQ, but they'll get into a basic situation, whether it's business, whether it's a social situation, maybe it's like a situation where they have to haggle with somebody and they just completely break down. Because they don't know how to do it.
Haggling actually gets advanced. I'm talking about kids who would, who normally were trained by their parents to email a professor about certain things. But because, let's say they had a slightly unusual scenario, now they didn't know what template to use as an email. So they're calling their parents, hey, how do I talk to this professor? And it's just navigating complexity was the difficult part. And so what was easy for them was if you tell them what the task was, do this, do that, they could follow it really well. And so, it was just dealing with novel scenarios, which often were present in social scenarios.
So would you say they're very smart, but kind of maybe very smart employees, maybe not people that were equipped to, let's say, do something on their own or be entrepreneurs, but maybe being like, the number one employee, because you've got to tell them what to do, right? You've
So
got to say, hey, go over there and do
I,
this,
I,
and then
I
they'll do it.
well,
But
I would push back on the employee or phrasing. I would say they were often very smart Paris Hiltons. They were not very smart employees because so with an employee,
Dude,
you
the
you
worst.
have this lack of reluctance to a degree to just do a task. Here, the, there was there was an ubiquitous number of just princesses, just people unwilling to actually do hard work, and it was just very annoying when people would, uh, talk about frivolous things as if it's a huge problem in their life.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Like there's a very small thing, a little small chunk, and they make that into a huge thing,
Right.
a huge point of their life.
And,
Yeah,
and those were things that were very shocking to me coming to America.
right.
I was like, what's the problem here? They're like, I have to walk 20 minutes. I was like, I'm still not getting it.
Did
What's the
anybody
problem?
complain about like when you went like if you take that back to Afghanistan? It's like it sounds like I have to walk 20 minutes. It's like okay, and like okay, is that a problem? I mean, I'm looking at I'll be in Tokyo in a week, and I'm like I picked out where I'm staying, and I'm like, oh, I have to walk 15-20 minutes to the station. It's like, oh, that's normal. That's
Yeah.
like that's
And
absolutely
that's
no problem
fun.
with that. What's wrong with that?
Right. And it's not like the walking is torture. It's like enjoyable. It's just life is fun. And so there was this weird, schism, I guess, in terms of the internal machinery that people had where they had so much and then weren't happy at all. And so, because I was happy to go on those walks, I was like, oh, 20 minutes through a beautiful campus? Yeah, I'll enjoy it.
That's great. Yeah, that's fantastic. But people would complain about that. And do you think it's because these people growing up, they never actually saw any real hardship like that? It's something that you kind of perceived that maybe they were spoiled by the parents or just kind of never
Yeah.
really understood what real challenges were.
So, I mean, okay, so this has not been fleshed out at all anywhere that I've
No,
seen, and
and
it's
this is
very
why
important to.
I'm talking
Yeah,
about it because I really want to get into the university
yeah,
scene because from my perspective, and this is the reason why I'm asking is because my experience in university, and I went to various universities. So I went to a local commuter
hmm,
school where most people were living in the community and commuting there. A lot of people to school, but that was very different because everyone's working, doing something else, kind of got their parents they're
right.
dealing with. Then I went away to a university, a master's for a master's degree, which is very much a prestigious university where there were a lot of those folks that were very spoiled and and kind of out of reality, right? And then I went to my law school where it was a mix, where it was people that had practical experience and people that didn't. And I
Right,
was best friends with the people that worked and actually knew what real challenges were. My best friend was somebody who was homeless and slept in their car
wow,
for I think it was 2 years because
wow,
they wanted to just work and save money and their parents had kicked them out. So they said, I'm just going to sleep in my car. And they ended up
wow,
being the number one student out of 400 people at my law school.
wow,
So
wow.
because they worked hard, they knew what real hard work was versus the
Right,
kids who came out of college. Their parents spoiled them. They told them they're the smartest person ever. And all of a sudden they're in law school where it's a curve. So
right.
everybody is smart. So everybody who's in there is smart. So when they learn they're not the number one student, in fact, when they end up ranked number 400 out of 400, they have a mental breakdown. Right.
And
So,
it was
yeah,
you're so right. I've had friends who had mental breakdowns on getting a B plus,
a B
and
plus, yeah, which is a good grade. Which is, by the way, a
right,
good grade.
right,
It's not horrible to get a B plus.
yeah,
That is actually
and
okay to get a B plus.
yeah, and it was absurd to the levels that it would actually harm their mental health. The the difference that with a Yale community that is generally hard for the larger populace to grasp is the hollowing out of the middle class, and so with other universities, you generally have a proper Bayesian distribution or Gaussian distribution of folks, some rich kids, some poor, but mostly middle class. With Yale, it's like inverted where you have a big curve here and then it's empty in the middle, and then it's a big curve in the end. So it's like you have like the top 1% or even narrower, just heavily overrepresented, and then a ton of poor kids. I think at
Right.
Yale there was a 42% that had, a ton of financial aid, and
So the distribution is
lots of poor.
you've got this extraordinarily rich, like you're talking like ridiculously rich, because at this point, yes, to afford that, particularly, loans aren't going to get you through that. You got to have money to get there.
Right.
So you've got this huge, the people that are paying a massive amount there at one
Right.
end, and then you've
Right.
got a bunch, and then you've got nobody in the
Right.
middle, and then you've got the
Yeah.
poor kids,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And
it's
they're just getting completely helped. And also from what I hear, my understanding is of this, and I've really followed this topic because I think it's fascinating. From what I understand, is a lot of those 42% of poor kids, they really struggle because they have a lot of issues, whether it's identity issues, I shouldn't be here, right? I don't belong here, or they can't keep up with the academic rigor.
Or some of them make it, and that's the gamble that these universities do with the endowments and so on. A lot of the second tier and third tier universities, what they rely on is just consistent donors, middle class donors who would donate $100 a month, maybe $1,000 a month, depending on if they're really rich. But Yale and other similar schools don't care so much for the middle class's donations. They want, one of the poor kids of the 42% to, like Stephen Schwartzman. He's a multi-billionaire.
Yes.
He makes it big and he donates 150 million. And, others donate 100 million. And so like those large jumps. And so at the end of the day, these schools are not actually about connecting smart people, even though smartness is a requirement to get in. The main thing is about a network. And so you connect the super rich with the super talented at the poor end, and some of them make it out big.
Yeah. No, and that's interesting. Like they can sit there and kind of say, okay, we're going to have 42%. And if one of these people, it's like a lottery, right? So one of these people makes it big, we're going to chase that endowment money from that one guy who makes it, right? We're going to make a ton of money on that guy because he's going to say, I owe Yale everything, right? Because he's going to feel like he's ingratiated to Yale. A person who's rich might not feel that way because their family money, right? There's daddy's money, they're a legacy, whatever else. Yale's whatever. Yale's no different than their high school, which was very fancy, probably.
But those kids make money too. So those kids are friends with the poor kid who were some of the first investors, and so they rode the wave. And so it's that network connection where everybody makes something out of it. And like your best friend who slept in the car and did such hard work, if he was on a scholarship, he would then say, I owe this to the school, even though ultimately it's himself, because he's the hardworking guy. The school, granted, is facilitating a lot of that. So yeah, it's a fascinating gamble how these universities go for it.
Absolutely. Two comments here from the chat. Dreamcatcher says, I'm so despondent about my 14-year-old son's future. I mean, you have to be, once again, as a mom, right? We have to be concerned about this, and we're going to get into your story and the issues here in a second. But I wanted to lay a ground rock, but a base level. But I think a lot of moms out there are thinking, okay, if you have sons, particularly, look, my mom has 3 sons, and she thinks about these things all the time because she has 3 sons. Right. So obviously, if you have a daughter or if you have a son and a daughter, maybe you say, well, the kid, the boy can deal with it, whatever. And the girl, I want to protect her. But when you have boys, I think you start to really think, okay, wait, what are they going through? What are they having to deal with? This is not fair. Right. And in a lot of the circumstances are not fair.
Two things for the Dreamcatcher. One was the families advocating for campus equality. Before I get into the story, I guess I had to face criminal charges, and when I went up for trial all the way, my parents were not in America, and so my mom and dad, they were scared for me. I was in a foreign country, speaking a foreign language, facing decades of prison and so on. And it was this organization, Families Advocating for Campus Equality, that was just full of mothers who showed up to my trial and who were there every single day, who made sure that I was eating and not forgetting, silly stuff, and just being there for me. And the jury saw that, and that was very helpful. And like these things make a huge difference. So look into that, Dreamcatcher. That's one. And two, there's a huge rise in the American political scene, with it's termed single white female, SWF. And it's a huge political force because they don't have the same connections with men, sons, husbands, and so on. And they're often, not this one is broad strokes, but they're often estranged from brothers and fathers as well. And so uh, that political force is double digits, and it's rising. And in the same way that boomers had an outsized influence in the political machinations of America, the SWF faction will as well.
Yeah, and that, I think that is something that I definitely cover here, that sort of SWF, as that's the leading trend. And we've seen, I want to say demographically, before we get into just broadly, right? In America, obviously this is new news for you, right? Because like you said, you knew about Yale as the building, you did Google Maps, but you probably didn't do a study, correct me if I'm wrong, but you probably didn't do a study on the changing trends in American universities, whereby, I think the old image in TV and movies used to be that they were kind of a boys' club or whatever else, and it was all a bunch of old white guys. Well, now, if you actually look at demographically universities, they're typically majority female. Most universities in the United States are 60% female at this point. And the trends are going up as increasingly a lot of young men are saying, wait a second, we don't want to go into debt. We want to go to vocational school. We want to go into the trades. We want to just learn to code. Do something that we can do directly without having to go to a 4-year liberal arts school and spend all this money, and just start making money immediately, particularly if they're middle class, which, like you said, is missing from that distribution there at the Ivy League level.
And
so
it's
they're
getting
saying
worse. One of the things that was that I got a lot of hate on campus before I got accused of assault was that I kept saying, like, hey, there's a Yale Women's Center. Why isn't there a men's center?
You can't say that. You cannot say that. That is just common sense. You cannot say that.
But it's, I guess I was naive. I had the right amount of wherewithal to notice a difference, and not enough of a social filter to not say it. So I just said it.
That's why you got in trouble.
But calling the emperor naked is sometimes necessary. And so there were all these sorts of scholarships and money, going to these programs where I'm like, but this isn't a problem being solved. This is literally just giving one group a big leg up without, equalizing the playing field.
Yep, exactly. And the thing is, especially now that the issues are coming up now, obviously we've got issues with trans issues and what is a woman and who qualifies for the Women's Center. So it's like, well, if a man wants to go get the women's only stuff, and I just say, oh, I'm a woman now, so now give me access to all that. You have to do that, right? It's a whole cognitive dissonance here, right? Where you've got these separate ideas which are now clashing. Another chat here from Maria Trujillo says, Judge, sir, what are your legal credentials? Saf, I have successfully sued Yale. Judge, very good. Carry on, sir.
It's funny. Actually,
pretty good credential.
Maria, I'm actually going to Trujillo. I'm actually going to apply to Yale Law School and Harvard Law School once I'm done with my lawsuit, and I'll give it a genuine try.
You think that after you sue them and let's say, so you're done with the lawsuit, everything's either settled or done or whatever else, right? And you think you turn around after having sued Yale and being like, hey, I want to go to your law school, and they're going to be like, yeah, we're giving you a 100% fair. There's nobody that's going to be in this process that's going to be like, are you kidding me?
Well, you know what they say: if you can't join them, beat them, and then they'll let you join you.
Okay, yeah. Well, no, I mean, I think you certainly have after dealing with the legal system like this, you certainly have some experience. Real quick here, Dreamcatcher says, a boy mom takes no crap. I scream for XY. Yes. Shout out to all the XYs out there, because there's very few people that are representing for them. I had a little tip here on Locals, which is my other platform, $5 from T Park. who says, hopefully you get this instead of much of it being leached off by a large, soulless, evil corporation. Thank you, T Park, for the $5. He's referencing, obviously, not YouTube. So appreciate that, and appreciate all the guys supporting me on all the platforms. So, okay, transitioning into what happened. So obviously, let me be clear though, you did have, before this happened, so did you have a name on campus? Did you have a reputation on campus? Were you that contrarian guy who's going out there, you're pointing out the men's clinic stuff, maybe you're pointing out more of the absurd things on campus? Were you sort of that guy in class, that guy on campus? Like, what was your reputation beforehand?
I was, but accidentally. Like, I didn't realize I was doing that. I was just, learning. I was going through America, figuring things out. And as your commentator pointed out with the soulless corporation, he said it about YouTube, but it actually quite very much applied to Yale. One thing that people forget is that there is no such thing as Yale. I mean, is it the buildings? Is it the students? Is it the professors? What is this ethereal entity that's an emergent property of, I guess, a soulless corporation? And so while I was on campus, I was, I guess, accidentally butting heads against topics that were, let's say, sensitive. And it was weird because of who I was, based on how identity politics in general works. The clash occurred in funny ways. I was in English class at one point, freshman year, and we were talking about power, and I made some point about MLK Jr. and his letter from a Birmingham jail. And this black girl told me, "You can't say that, you're white." And
she said that to you?
Yeah.
To you?
Yeah, in class.
Okay.
And so she didn't know me. It was like second week, freshman year.
Yeah, I just love, by the way, I don't know if you noticed this. This is something that I think isn't an issue outside of America, but like this definition of what white is, and it's sort of the strategic like way to put you in a box. Like when they want to silence you, it's like it's like, especially with Asia and I mean, and whatever. It's like you'll be strategically, when something happens to you, if it's a guy from Mississippi who was picking on you because you're from Afghanistan, right? And was doing something really, really racist to you, then all of a sudden you're a person of color, right? And you're a victim, right? But turn around and you, the exact same person, right, tell a black person, hey, you don't really have like this, the problems that you have in America are on a different level than maybe I'm seeing in Kabul, right? How dare you say that, you white person, right?
So that was the funny part. So this was a funny exchange. She didn't know me. She just, assumed that, and so I was new to America. And so I said, my initial immediate reaction, because I was, my freshman brain, I was trying to make a good argument, and I was like, I'm not white. And then I continued to, make whatever point I was making. And she apologized at that moment. And then, those
because you said that, right?
It was so silly. And then, those epiphanies you get when you're like in the shower, and like a week later, I'm like thinking about like what happened before, that week. Look, I'm new to America, and so I'm like still processing stuff. And it hit me. I'm like, wait a minute. So what if I was white? Like, let's say I was white. I can still make the point. Like,
but the point is you cannot have an opinion unless you win on the Victimhood Olympics, right? So you've got to push yourself up there on the I am a victim of white colonialism, right? You have to say, because I have been oppressed by Russia and by the evil United States. You got to denounce the United States, right? And evil white people. Therefore, I have this.
Yeah. And it was absurd because I was like, I didn't say anything that like it has nothing to. It's orthogonal to whatever identity I have, right? And so, like. And oftentimes I was told that I was a victim, and I was like, look, a lot of problems in Afghanistan are because of Afghans. Like I would point to my people. I was like, hey, these are like some serious issues that we
probably broke them. That probably broke their brain.
And they were like, no, you just internalized racism. And
God. Okay.
And like,
yeah.
and like you're so victimized that you've internalized it. I'm like, no, like this is seriously an issue. Like here are organizational issues that my people have, and we should improve. Because like, hey, look, if we're going to be a people on the world stage doing good stuff, like we need to get over these problems. And they're
Mhm.
like, no, that's just what white people want you to think. And like, I was forced to be a victim on campus, and I was like, no, like this America is actually spending a ton of money and sending experts trying to rebuild Afghanistan. Like they're trying to help us with democracy and yada yada. And it angered a lot of people. It's like
Because they want you to fit into a pattern, the victim pattern, and they try to push you into that very hard. They try to make you to accept that mantle, and when you don't, you get what we call canceled, right? You
it,
get big
but that was the
time
thing. They
canceled.
couldn't cancel me. So I was a founder and a moderator for this group called Overheard at Yale, which was the local
Mhm.
gossip group. And I would stop a lot of people abusing the platform for social justice warrior goals, and
Mhm.
I would just use it purely for what it was supposed to be for fun and like gossip. And yeah, people had a hard time like arguing against me because their normal rhetoric is like, "You're white, shut up," and I'm like, "Nope, I can still say this. I'm not." And so people
Well,
just
they'll
hated.
be like, oh, you're white because I saw Ben, my friend Ben, in the chat, who's like, you're white because Afghanistan was at one point there were Greeks there, right, back in the day of Alexander the Great. So therefore, you're Greek, and therefore you're white, and you're a colonizer. You know.
It's like, yeah, it's and like being born in a refugee camp. Like, look, it's not other people's fault to that degree. Like, I'm actually
Right.
incredibly grateful that I'm alive. That like I have a very happy perspective on life, and like people just didn't want me to be happy, and I was like, look, I'm just happy. Deal with it.
I have that. I have that. People ask me that sometimes. They're like, they'll actually literally legitimately ask me. They'll be like, Andrew, why are you so happy? I'm like, this is the way I am, man. That's how I am. It's just my personality,
Right?
right? Like if I'm sorry that you're a miserable human being and your life sucks. That's your personal problem, and stop trying to push that on me. Because the funny thing is, these people with the victim mentality that try to tell you you are a victim, if you look at their lives, they're miserable people. They tend to be very unhappy people. They people
It,
that are not happy about their circumstances. They're
it's
constantly complaining about everything.
Yeah, and I guess that's how we started on this topic, Andrew. The
Yeah.
complaining about little things, and it was genuinely sad to witness the self-loathing. And I was like, why? Just look around you. You're surrounded by immense wealth and power, and be kind to yourself. It's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me get this super chat here. Marsupio Gamer for 10 says, hey, what do you think about Larry Summers' comments about Harvard supporting Hamas? My father and two sisters went to Harvard and they're crushed that Ivy League schools are ruining their reputations. I think, to me, this is my personal opinion, I think that as academic institutions should not be taking these wild political stance as an institution, because when you start taking a political stance, whatever that stance is, right, whether it is a right or a wrong stance, whatever, it's a divisive issue, you're alienating your students. You're telling your students that, hey, this is not a place where we are encouraging free intellectual discourse. This is a place where this is the party line. And if you step out of line, you will be corrected. The official party line is X, and that's all that we will accept. We do not accept any other version. I don't know how you feel about strong political statements. It doesn't have to be this specifically,
Yeah.
but just in
So
general.
so so I have a brother at Harvard right now, and I'll
Mhm.
be at Harvard for family weekend in a few weeks as well. Um, the Larry Summers, he's an interesting character, not just from his work on the new university in Texas and so on. Um, Partially, the issue is he invited all these folks on campus. Like he's somehow now surprised that the chickens have come home to roast. It's like he helped. I mean, he did stand up against it a little bit later on, but like he then quickly got ousted. And that's, I guess, the issue with having a top-down approach, as you pointed out, Andrew, of like, hey, this is the discourse and this is the official party line and this is what's supposed to be done and said. Well, who determines that? And so it becomes a narrow and narrower elite group that does that, akin to like the CCP or elsewhere. It's you know although one small thing about the Harvard thing was like it was a few groups and it was sudden, and there are students who are disavowing from it. I think the official Harvard University stance was not the same as what the student orgs were saying.
Right. So you're having like a battle there. So like the student organizations might be saying one thing, but the official party line is another, right? But then that puts them into in groups and out groups. That puts those into those that are allied with the prison camp masters and those that are not, right? So
Right.
it's one way and another. Maria says the phrase "you're only as strong as your greatest cardship" comes to mind. What sounds stronger? Someone messed up my Starbucks order, or I had to walk a dozen miles to get water out of a well. Yeah. I mean, the conception of problems that people have. I mean, look, I live in Asia right now. I'm in Thailand, right? When I hear problems, it's like some real ass problems. Like people have a significant problem. It's not, I ordered a pumpkin spice latte and they gave me matcha instead. Whatever, shut the fuck up, right? Like it's not a serious problem. I absolutely agree.
Mario's thing is funny, and it's because one of the things that I guess I accidentally would do on campus is when people would, mention these stories, and others would be like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," and I would burst out laughing, and it was just funny. It's like, I guess I just didn't have that social filter on campus, and I guess part of the reason why so many of my colleagues didn't like me.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing on on YouTube is, people sometimes do not like, I can identify with that because I think especially people in the chat, you guys know, sometimes I am pretty unscripted, unfiltered, and some people get offended by that. But hey, look, it's my honest opinion, and we should be able to have like open discourse about stuff without getting so easily offended all of the time. Earlier one from Derna, but I'm not sure what he was talking about. Derna said, should have just straight up went, why are the women showing their eyeballs like whores? I don't know. Derna, I don't know what you're talking about, bro. But appreciate the $10. And guys, also, if you like this content, you like this interview, make sure you like the stream because that really helps to get us out there in the algorithm, helps people know what's going on and know what's happening. So make sure you like it because these streams are not getting out to everybody always. But the more we like, the more you share them, the more they get out there. So let's See-Through Metal sent a tip on locals. So www making have some sane conversations damn near impossible. Oh, woke white women. Thank you. See-Through Metal.
Oh, www.
Okay. www. I was like www. Oh, woke white women. Thank you, See-Through Metal, who is a white woman, but not woke. So she's a based white woman. So let's switch over to the scenario. Let's switch over to what happened. So can we talk about as much as you can and much with respect to the incident and the individuals and their identities, right? Can you talk about what happened or what didn't happen or what was the incident? When did it happen? Give us a picture.
Yeah, so I'll go through it with speed. So feel free to ask questions at any point. So where you want clarification. Yeah. So one thing I was doing on campus quite a bit was I went to tons of parties. I knew a lot of girls.
You're a college kid. That's normal. That's super normal. That's absolutely normal. I mean, look, people say, I go to college just to study. No, I was going to college to meet girls as well. I remember when I went to University of North Carolina, my master's degree, I was looking up, okay, how hot are the girls at this school? Like it's normal. And the fact that people have made that into a thing that like, oh, you can't say that. You can't talk about that. Of course, right? Guys, especially you're in their teens, early 20s, you're going to want to meet girls. So that's normal. That's very normal. Right. There's nothing wrong about that.
Yeah. So I had a ton of fun. And senior year, I had joined 2 different secret societies. And one of them was a Jewish one back then named Eliezer, now called Shoutouts. We had recently purchased a new building, and so I decided to throw a party for the society at the new building to celebrate it. And so we did it for Halloween night, 2015. I was class of 2016. I was about to graduate. It was the fall. And one of the girls that I had been flirting around that time, I invited her to dinner Saturday night. We knew each other. We were in the same dormitory, about 20, 30 feet from each other's rooms. We worked in the same dining hall. And that's a funny comment.
No,
And
sorry, that's my good friend Ben. He was like, if a man in college cannot go to parties and hit on girls, the terrorists have already won. Just a very funny comment. Thanks,
don't let the
Ben.
terrorists
Appreciate
win.
it. He's a real good guy.
It's
Okay,
facetious, but it's true because the terror is a genuine part of it. Like you shouldn't be terrified to go approach somebody.
That should be normal. That should be very much. That's how humans are supposed to interact
Right.
in person. We're not all supposed to talk to each other on this, right? I shouldn't have to say the only way for me to girl is to me go like this, and they have to approve of me beforehand. That is ridiculous. It's silly. Contrary to human experience of saying, well, she wasn't fully consenting because you didn't match with her on the appropriate app and get her consent, and it's ridiculous.
Absolutely, one should listen to cues and know.
Yeah, sure. No, sorry, but I meant like,
of course,
there's this idea of there's this concept.
No, I wasn't pushing back on you. I was saying that it's this normal approach of like just going up to a person, and this isn't just related to dating. It's actually related to business. I don't have a resume. Like every job I've had, every task I've had, even my current ability of, pursuing litigation against Yale University, a titan, an American god, and winning so strongly, is not because I have been like, emailing people this way and that way. I literally show up and shake people's hands and say, hey, will you help me? And so that's how you go about it. And so, any sort of relationship. So going back to the story, I was at the society, invite the girl for dinner. We were flirting back and forth on messages, sending, flirty messages.
So how did you meet? You just met through like normal, like you met at parties, you were like, you got her information, you got her like her her text number, her number texting, just flirting a little bit.
Yeah, from some event, and then we started texting and flirting, and we had known each other from the before as well. We worked in the dining hall as well, and we ended up at dinner and at my party that I was hosting, and a symphony orchestra show right after that, and then we ended up at her room. We had sex, and she finds out that I have. Sorry.
So okay. So she went. You sounds like from that painting there that you just painted that you met her. So you met her several times. She was not a stranger, right? No. You had text messages that showed you were flirting, right? That you had a previous relationship that you had been flirting back and forth,
right?
And she had been to parties. She had mutual friends of yours, so people who knew you, and there had been like it had been clear that you were not her mentor. You were not in some sort of subordinate. You were not subordinate. Superior subordinate relationship. There's no improper.
We were both just seniors.
Seniors, you're both the same age. There's none of that going on. So all of those typical things that they would say might be an issue are not there. Just walking through the things that when you're looking at these scenarios, you might look at, okay, what are some factors here? At the part before you get to the time when you eventually have sex, are you like, is there drinking involved or is there?
So she said on trial that she had rum and coke and stuff, drinks like that, about 4, and according to her testimony, but there was no rum and coke. This was my party that we had a bartender hired, and we have the receipts for it.
Wow.
There was only wine and beer. There was no rum and coke. There was no hard liquor available. And so that was one of the things she lied about.
That is smart. Did you think to have why did you have a bartender? Did you think about that beforehand, or was it just
generally what you do for parties? You don't want liability. You don't want, to accidentally give alcohol to underage 21-year-olds. You can get into deep trouble. So you just outsource to a professional, and so on. The other issue is the sex happened like 6 hours or 5-ish hours after the last drink she could have even had. So
Like bars
technically,
closed, it's 6 hours after. So
yeah,
she's at least like the sobering up is happening at that point, even if she was drunk.
right, right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and so these parts are relevant for later on. And so, yeah, so we have sex in her room, and she realizes that I have an open relationship with my long distance girlfriend.
Oh shit. Yep. That's
And
that. Okay. And that right there in the little tick box brain, yep. She's like, oh, I'm not gonna break into that. This was just this. It
I
wasn't that.
I actually
Okay.
I actually make it worse. So I am sometimes really stupid. Here's what I did. I called my girlfriend from her room. I talked to my girlfriend 2.5 hours or so from this chick's room.
And she heard you?
Oh yeah, I even gave her the phone to talk to my girlfriend because like they
Mm-hmm.
knew each other.
Beforehand.
Right,
So they knew each other, but maybe she didn't realize you were in a
right,
relationship.
right. And
Oh wow. Yeah, that all comes together. That 100% comes together.
and then in the morning,
Oh, big oof.
we discussed that we shouldn't, tell others that we had sex. And, because like she didn't want to be known that she went out with that player over there. Because like
That
I
guy,
was,
yeah.
yeah, that guy who's known to go around sleeping. And so
Which is once again not criminal behavior, right? I mean, by the way, you would have a great time in Thailand. I'm telling you, Ben said it in the chat. You love it here.
I
Um,
I
but
I
but
have huge plans on enjoying out east.
when you come out east, let me know. But yeah, no, I do appreciate. By the way, one thing I do appreciate. I mean, people are different, but I do appreciate people that are honest, right?
Right.
And it seems like you were conducting yourself in an honest manner, right? So
So
like whatever
that's
you're doing,
exact.
you were doing it honestly.
Yeah. So I've gotten feedback from people saying, "Hey, don't tell folks that you were promiscuous." And I'm like, "Look, this is genuinely the issue, and that's actually the reason the jury at court decided in my favor." The prosecutor asked me, "Hey, how did you feel at this moment when the girl took off her clothes?" I was like, "I felt horny."
What are you supposed to feel? I felt the inner peace of Buddha. It's like, no, of course, like
the
it's
girl the girl on the stand, she was shown messages that she had sent to me where she sent me Shakespearean poems and flirty
right,
messages and like
right,
and like emojis and kissy faces and stuff, and she's like, "Oh, that's nothing, that's just basic normal human talk."
right.
And she was like denying stuff, like she was like,
Pretending that wasn't like something that
right,
indicated romantic interest, being like,
right,
no, no, that's just
yeah.
what I say to
For example,
everybody. I just send them
she
Shakespeare.
said that she said on the stand that she never goes out to party, she never drinks. Her own friends said, "Oh yeah, we go to parties all the time. We drink all the time together." Her own friends.
Yeah, of course, because it's gonna be a very provable lie because it's girls too, so they've got photos, right? So at some point, somebody's phone, they took a selfie at a party, and when you say I never, and you make the statement, I never party, which is once again, they always give it on them, they always tell themselves because they over exaggerate, right? So they say,
Yeah,
oh, I never. Well, no, you should say, okay, well, I sometimes go to parties,
right,
right? That's fine because that might be accurate because that's subjective, but
right.
never is an absolute. So you need one thing to disprove that clear lie.
The
And yeah, it's not
and
even a good lie, right? Like this is the thing, like this woman is clearly not even good at lying,
right.
right? When she's lying.
And that's why I'm happy because she made my job very easy in defending my innocence. And it was honestly scary because even on the stand, and there was one juror, this black juror, he was about 50-ish years old. The entire trial, he was like quiet, like just solemn face, just not
Mm-hmm.
interacting. When the following happened, he had the biggest grin on his face you could see. He had huge lips and he like biggest grin, happy,
Yeah.
so happy. Because he was like just laughing, just looking at the jurors to his sides, like, "Are you guys seeing this? Are you guys seeing what I'm seeing?" Here's what happened. The girl testified that she had, again, the word absolute never, she had never had male contact sexual,
She said
before.
she never had
Wait.
sex before.
No,
Well,
no,
hold
no,
on, hold on.
no.
Okay, sorry, I'm getting
Before
worked up.
before that night for 6 months.
Okay.
So the last time she had sex was with her boyfriend, who's in the military, and she brought him to this trial, like in his uniform and so on, to show that, that she's a good girl. And she had not had any sexual contact before then, until, the boyfriend 6 months ago. And and she also testified that, yeah, the nurse was female, the person who took her to the nurse was female, the medical test and examinations, they did a battery of tests, all
Yeah,
of that.
sure.
And it was found that there was unidentified male DNA all over her body, especially in
Right.
her anal swabs.
Oh, and guys, chat.
And,
A in the chat, guys. A in the chat.
and medical experts from the state of Connecticut said, yeah, this was not Mr. Khan's DNA. It is male DNA. It's unidentified.
Unidentified male DNA. So she's got neither her boyfriend nor the other guys. So see, A's in the chat. The A's are dropping in the chat for the anal swabs. I mean, this is absolutely. I mean, it's
Right.
so typical. It's so. They want to portray themselves as one thing, but then when you go back to facts and reality, it's like, oh, another. And you did it yourself by pressing the claim, right? By pressing this claim.
And that's the scary part to me, Andrew, was none of this stuff informs of the few minutes she and I had the sexual interaction. Because on those moments, I don't have a camera, I don't have a recording, I don't have.
No, that would be illegal, probably. I mean,
Right.
unless she
Well,
consented to it, but even then.
So I don't have. If somebody questions me on those minutes, I don't have a way to prove that. What I do have is like everything before that is provable, everything after that. Everything I say matches true evidence, hard evidence. Everything she said just completely does not match. For example, she also mentioned that, from the symphony orchestra, to her room, she was tripping, she was falling, she couldn't see, her eyes were closed. I was grabbing her, I was dragging her across campus. And there are cameras that show her laughing, going on her own. There are like some moments where I'm like touching her back with my arm.
Yeah,
like,
as in a romantic way,
Right.
as a person who is in a romantically interested,
Right.
thing does. That's typical.
And-
Touch
and-
the
and-
arm, guide him
Yeah.
here, they got him there.
And the cameras just show me like, being gregarious, just moving my hands. It appears that I'm joking and she's laughing, and she's walking like a normal person.
Right. She's not being lulled like it's a hostage video and you're there, just like leading her there, like, okay, I'm gonna execute you unless you go. No, it's not that situation where you're getting into that.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And
Let me read these two chats here real quick.
Sure.
This is good. Nick Christopher 5 says, dude, missed opportunity to have your girlfriend watch over Skype. Nick, behave yourself, Nick. Behave yourself. Jessica says, I tried not to, but I'm gonna say it. Repeal the 19th. Just because you regret having sex with someone isn't grounds to falsely MeToo a man and revoke consent after the past. I mean, that's the when I accidentally said consent out, it's this idea of consent that they have nowadays, which is I can retroactively deconsent to things, because that's part of the dialectic now. The same one that says you're a victim is the dialectic of you didn't feel like a victim in the moment because you're under their evil misogynist spell. But now, in retrospect, you can withdraw your consent that was actually non-consensual, even though it was consensual. Just like they're trying to tell you that you're a victim because you're of the U.S. because you're Afghani. They're trying to do in the same way. They're trying to brainwash, especially particularly women, to say, hey, that guy that didn't work out, that relationship that didn't go the way you wanted, it was because he actually assaulted you. He actually was doing this. It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts.
Andrew, the you and Jessica, I think, are super smart on this, because that's exactly actually what happens next. So here's what happened in the morning. She and I discussed, just not talking about it, to others, not telling others that she and I had sex. And I'm like, okay, the girl wants privacy, and I'm not gonna kiss and tell. I'm not that kind of guy who, brags. Like, it's just not a fun thing to do.
Yes, I very much agree with that. I very much agree with that.
And so I was like, cool, I agree. Let's have breakfast and talk it over. Let's, flesh out certain things because I knew she was like peeved by it. And so there's text messages between us talking about this. And again, uh, I made a stupid mistake. I was an athlete on campus as well. I was, I went back to my bedroom, was charging my phone, and the moment I went to sleep, my captain calls me saying, yelling at me, get over here, get to the stadium right now. We have a cricket game against Harvard. And I'm like, yes, sir. And I'm like, out of
You cricket player.
Right. And
Okay,
so
got it.
I was one of those athletes that didn't show up to practice. I just want to show up to games. So I had like,
right, sure.
Because and I was one of their best players, so I got away with it because others had to show up to practice. And I'm running to cricket, and I text the girl saying, hey, sorry, I got a ditch on breakfast. Can we meet for a different meal and so on? So I blew her off on that as well. So this whole time I'm like,
yeah.
I'm making her feel, I guess, disrespected. And look, I will own up
Right.
to that. Like, I didn't make this woman feel that, I'm giving her my time.
She was the one. She was the center of your eye, the apple of your eye, right? You
And look,
didn't make her feel like that.
I was very honest about it that this is
Right.
purely transactional for me. And I
Right.
still
casual. It's casual,
right.
right? Like, yeah, casual,
Yeah.
right? I want to be careful with transactional because people might, with transactional, people can think of paid sex, right? So, but you mean I know exactly what you're saying. Transaction in the sense of we both are wanting to have sex in this moment, therefore we are having sex in this moment. That is the exchanges. It's casual exchange of sex, not change of the intent is a relationship, but of course
Bingo.
you can have that intent and somebody else can have a secret other intent, right? And the point is you are being held liable, and men in general, all men, people, all guys out there are being held liable for the intent of women, right? And let me read this one. I have to read this one because it's $20. Squid says, wait, her boyfriend was military? That makes complete sense. The only women I've ever known to falsely accuse men were dependents of military men and married female service members that got caught cheating. I will say it's like as a guy who was I was in Seoul before this in Korea, and all those guys with their girlfriends back home when they're like, oh, I know she's waiting for me, I'm just laughing. I'm like, yeah, waiting for you with 6 dudes. But hey, good luck out there.
That's a fascinating insight, Squid. So
Squid's for, and by the way, Squid's no, he's a good follower of mine, been there for a while, knows what he's talking about. So
to relate back to what Jessica said and what you pointed out, Andrew, here's the worst part that happened that morning. So I'm off to playing cricket. Her friends end up showing at her room later. Oh, by the way, she goes to the nurse, and the nurse reported, she took down notes and also talked about it at trial, that girl has come into the office and has reported that she had consensual sex with her partner.
She reported it.
Yes.
As consensual.
Yeah, because she wanted plan B. She wanted plan B. And so she wanted plan B and reported consensual sex to the nurse. And then 20, 30-ish or so minutes later, she goes to her room and her friends show up. And some of her friends ask her, hey, I saw you with Saif last night. You were quite touchy-feely with him. Did anything happen? And the girl's like, no, I wasn't with Saif. Nothing happened. And then another friend of hers sees the multiple condoms in the trash can.
Oh,
and then that friend asks, did you have sex? And she says, I did not. He did. It wasn't me. It was him. I didn't do anything. It was all him. And the friends are like, that sounds like rape.
So the friends convinced him. Okay, yeah, okay. Yep, this is making sense. This is making a lot of sense
and so
she got caught in that spiral of the story, and then she just had to go with it because that's what her friends projected on her after she lied, right? After she repeatedly lied. Sleazy says, sorry, here quick, $5. Dude did Passport Bros the wrong way. I don't know if you're ready for Passport Bros, but that's not there's a lot of Western guys that are leaving the US to go
I understand
elsewhere
the
because they're
concept.
like, we're done with these woke white women. He's like, you can leave white women, not come to them. Very funny.
That's funny.
Very, very funny. Hilarious.
So it gets worse. The spiral becomes worse, and this is where I blame this girl, and I've sued her for defamation. You know, she didn't correct the record. The girls, her friends, then force her to go to a sex therapist at Yale. And here's a staunchly hardcore feminist woman who, the moment she hears a little bit of it, says, "You have been severely, you know, assaulted in this manner,
Right.
and this is horrible." And
And that's what the
immediately,
therapist is projecting that onto her after this.
and then immediately calls from, while she's sitting there, the Yale Police Department, the Yale Title IX office, the Yale Dean's office, and starts this entire huge investigation where the machine that is Yale, the Kafkaesque bureaucracy, kicks into gear. And I am called into the office. I am given 30 minutes to pack up and leave. Immigration is in jeopardy now. They have contacted ICE at the Department of Homeland Security. They will not tell me what's going on. They will not tell me what I'm really being accused of. They're only giving me a 3-sentence email. And I'm put on emergency suspension immediately. Criminal charges are filed against me.
This is all almost immediate.
Well, so like the Yale machine, like when I received it, it was immediate. But the machine was like had started
turning
working
before it got to you. So once you got it, it was pretty immediate.
Yeah,
but
because I was just going through life, just my normal, usual self, like, hey, what do I do for thesis? What do I do for midterms?
Right.
And then snap, I am now worried about deportation, criminal charges, because I was brought to America on a student visa. And
that's a violation of your visa. Yeah. I'm very aware that's what I am in the business of over here in Asia, helping guys with their visas over here. And you violate anything, right? Anything, and you're up at risk. And it's always so funny how they're always so happy to tell folks to come into the U.S. Illegally, but the second they can put threat on your status, they go after that right away.
And the threat was deep. The fear was so deep because I've actually entered about 3 countries without having the legal visa to enter those countries because Yale helped me get in. I went to several European countries, but my professor was a former prime minister of a European country, and they were like, "Oh, don't worry, we have an excursion there, and you don't have a visa there. I'll take you. Don't worry." And he just calls up the chief of police. So like through the power of Yale, I have actually managed to push through significant visa hurdles.
That's big. That's really big.
I've had situations with the United States visas where one time I was in Kabul waiting for my US visa to clear and I was waiting 2 months and my ticket is, in 2 days, plane ticket. And I called Yale and it's like 6 p.m. The embassy's closed. And I called Yale like, hey, my flight is soon. What do? I don't have my visa. And they're like, oh, just give us a minute. 1 minute. And 10 minutes later, the U.S. Embassy called me. Hey, your visa is ready. Do you want to pick it up now or in the morning?
Crazy. It's crazy the influence these folks have and what money buys you, right? And of course, there's no corruption in the United States at all whatsoever, right?
Yale
there's no nepotism at all.
Powerful.
Yes.
They have significant power. And so when Yale initiated deportation proceedings, I was scared.
Yeah, because it goes the other way now, right? So now it's the power of Yale against you. So it works exactly that same way.
Right.
No,
I had realized I hadn't been on the receiving end in that way. I was on the receiving end, like I was on good terms with Yale. I knew the professors, I knew deans, and yeah. And what was
let's talk. So let me talk about this part. So of course you have this first area, this first piece of process, where you're given the notification, right? But in terms of the order, right? Because we have a little order of operation, and you did talk a little bit. You did skip forward and talk about the trial. but the first process was the university hearing. Now, I have actually been in a university honor court, and my negative experience with that it was such a kangaroo court that I am permanently, when I heard about your story and the crux of the legal battle in court was the due process or lack thereof that was given to you by the university. So that was the first thing that happened, I believe, was the university process, right?
So
before the court process.
So I got lucky in ways that I have not seen anybody else in America get lucky with.
Mm.
The university had initiated both proceedings simultaneously,
Mm-hmm.
and I wrote a letter saying I will not participate in your university thing because
Mm-hmm.
I have criminal stuff going on, and I'll just be
Mm-hmm.
quiet. I would rather avoid going to prison than being expelled. And so
Mm-hmm.
the university agreed to pause the hearings against me until my criminal proceedings were done with. And especially because I said, look, you've already put me on emergency suspension. I'm not on campus. So it's moot to pursue these charges, from the student aspect. And what was worse was Yale this entire time was putting their grubby thumbs on the scales of justice through the Yale police. This investigation, while the prosecution was by the state of Connecticut, the investigation and the police work was only by the Yale police. It was not the state police or the New Haven police. And so we found out later at trial that Yale had tried their best to destroy exculpatory evidence, anything they could find that actually proved my innocence. They tried to hide it and destroy it. And the prosecutor's office found
and
it.
the exact thing they're not supposed to do, right? Destroying evidence.
Horrible.
Police aren't supposed to do. But university police, I think they do feel like they operate by different rules. I feel like they operate under the thumb of the university. So the university directs them, and they're like, well, it's Yale, so they're telling us to do it. They must know.
That's partially why Yale hates me so much, is because Yale has been expanding their fiefdom across so many domains. I mean, they already don't pay taxes. They control Connecticut and a good chunk of America, and definitely the city and the nearby vicinity of Yale. And so having their own police force where they're deputized and have the same powers as regular police, but they're hired, fired, and promoted and given an agenda by the university. In my case, the university administrators and the Yale police had written notes saying, he's from Afghanistan, violence is accepted there, he must have done it.
It's so funny. So they push all this woke shit, but then they literally use probably the most racist argument possible, right?
And I have this. I have the evidence. I have the written evidence that they have this shit.
Wow. That like, they do all this virtue signaling, all this, we care about people, the world's a rainbow, we love everybody, we want to help and support everybody, lift everybody up. Nope, you're from this place, therefore all people there are violent rapists. That's essentially what they're saying. I mean, they're essentially saying that.
Horrendous. And that's why, one of the crazy things is because everywhere I go, I say, look, I don't represent men. I can't possibly represent 4 billion human beings.
Right.
I don't represent Afghanistan. The only thing I represent is my words and my actions.
Yeah, yourself, right? You represent you, right? I am me representing me and my experiences and my thoughts, right?
If the trial was about, did I, piss off and scorn this girl, guilty as charged. But if the trial is about, did I assault this woman, no, I will fight for that innocence. Till put me through 100 trials. I will fight for that. I didn't do this thing. And so and that's what the jury saw. And
so to be clear about the trial was your trial was a criminal trial. You went through a criminal trial, and after all that evidence, so they went through the evidence, they saw. Excuse me?
So this was right at the height of MeToo, and so
at the height of MeToo, right? So was this before or after Amber Heard?
Before, several years before. This was
several years before.
Right around Harvey Weinstein.
Ooh, whoa.
And
Okay, so that's real tough to beat.
yeah, so I was having BuzzFeed, Huffington Post, New York Times, all sorts of magazines and newspapers just trashing me and talking about how I was the worst example of toxic masculinity, and how, and those are real quotes, and how I am, a monster, and so on and so forth, and how I clearly have done it. And this entire time, all that evidence that I told you about, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
because I recognize the perennial fear of, look, fighting in the media is 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 a no-go. It's a silly endeavor for anybody to do at any point. So what I did was I kept all of the strong hard evidence because I knew the girl was going to lie. Because she's clearly lying about this thing, so she's going to lie about other stuff.
Oh, she's
And
gonna lie about
so,
everything. She's gonna literally lie about everything. Yeah, I
right,
mean,
and so she, for example, said, oh, she had some messages on her phone that she had sent, and she was like, oh, he sent those messages. And my attorney's like, what do you mean? He had your password, he knew your friends, he knew what to write. Also, these messages were sent at these minutes. He was not in the same building in those minutes. Here's proof that he was not in the same building. I have card swipes where, you enter a building and you swipe it.
a
Those
lot of
showed
information. Yeah.
I was not there for you to say that I sent your messages. I don't even know your friends. I don't even
Right.
know your phone passcode. Also, how could somebody send your messages from your goddamn phone? And so it's like,
Right.
she lied about everything. And
Yeah,
so,
she's yeah, that's she's that definitely is echoes of pre-Amber Heard there, right? It's like this is just absolutely a generated story, right? Because you've got a particular line that's been now reinforced not just by your friends, but your therapist, by the mainstream media. So she can't back down from the story because she's been lionized by all of these outlets now. Now that they've all run out, just rushed out to back her up. Now, did you keep all of those articles and other things that were negative about you? Or did your lawyers keep those? So like you can say, okay, in the future when you turn back around, you've got those, right?
yeah, so I do. I have to. So one of the hardest parts is just gathering resources, because when Yale kicked me out, I had $94 to my name. And so, just fighting criminal charges, fighting, an institution, and all of this has been so hard. And so, like, one thing that is difficult to do is do the order and sequence of fights back, because I can't afford to fight too many fronts at once. And so I will be coming for them. There are quite a number of other lawsuits I will be filing, because 15 feminist organizations then tried to stop me in my lawsuit, by the way. So after the criminal trial, one of the funniest articles, so I'm found not guilty by the jury. Who said,
in particular, let me just make from a legal point, right? So they can make an argument before the criminal trial. So before the criminal trial, they can make an argument, well, we don't know. Here's our argument for his guilt, right? Like, we don't know. But the defamatory part, and I'm explaining this to the people out there too, the defamation happens when you know this is a criminal result and you are, and it says not guilty of this crime, and you continue to put out information which says this person is guilty of this crime, right? So that's the problem, and that's what we still see here. And that's what ends up being defamatory, is when you know something is not true and you say it anyways because, hey, it fits the narrative.
It definitely meets the New York Times v. Sullivan threshold for actual malice. And there was a recent case a week ago with a coal miner in West Virginia versus defamation in news media, that Clarence Thomas actually wrote an opinion. The SCOTUS actually rejected talking about it. They didn't pick it up because the vehicle wasn't appropriate. So sorry, I just went into the legal direction.
It's all good. It's all good. I'm a lawyer. That's what we do. We nerd out on law shit here on this channel, so it's all good. We have a casual conversation, but also talk a lot about law stuff. So
the funny standards were so jury comes back with not guilty, and they said it wasn't just beyond a reasonable doubt. The girl just lied. He's innocent. The jury said this man is innocent.
The jury said that.
Yeah, they spoke to the media saying, "Look, we looked at the evidence. He's innocent."
Right.
And
we saw the anal swab. We've gotten it. Like we've got like what else do we saw the evidence? This is ridiculous. She's lying hoe. You know, like what's going on here? You know.
And the next day, the Yale Daily News writes an article, not guilty. And
the Yale News the next day writes that.
Right. And they're like, well, just because a court of law says he's not guilty, it doesn't mean he's in reality not guilty.
They said that.
Right. That's the title. You can Google it. It's
that's
hilarious.
Defamation. Yeah, that's defamation.
It's insane. And it's been this constant barrage over the past years and years where people are just unwilling to accept that she lied and that I'm innocent. And it's just like, well, no, you were just, beyond reasonable doubt is just really difficult standard, so you just didn't meet that standard. And we still think you are. And Yale kicks me out anyway. So they spent months and months redacting. I submitted all the evidence and they disregarded the evidence. I submitted the trial transcript and they redacted all the parts that showed that she lied, just blacked it out. Mm-hmm. And then they found like the smallest of things, saying
like a minor inconsistency or something like that.
Yeah. So like I think like at criminal trial, I had mentioned that at some specific moment that she had no clothing on, that she was nude, and at the Yale hearing, which happened months later, I had said for that specific moment that she was naked and she had one piece of underwear on, and she had no other clothing.
Yeah, sure. So it's like you forgot in a scenario whether she was completely naked or had panties on or something, right? Like honestly, that's a situation. Yeah, you are right. You're not going to remember that. Like if you asked me last week, which first of all, I'm going to have trouble even remembering, right? Just like last week, okay, you saw a girl on Tuesday. What color were her panties, right? I'm not going to, fuck if I know, right? Like black, green. I mean, she wasn't wearing it. Like if you asked me last week, much less months ago.
All I remember is that I was horny. Like, in the moment, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. I remember I want to Hulk smash. It's like you're just thinking about having sex then because you're a kid trying to have sex. That's normal. Yeah. That's typical.
And it's the genuine, honest approach. Like, I'm not going to make stuff up for you just to, to answer your question. If I don't know something, I'll tell you. I just don't know, right? And so they expel me anyway, and I sue them. I sue the university. Yes. I sue the administrators involved, and I sue the girl, and for a ton of claims, and for $110 million in federal court. And so it goes a significant way.
And so I guess the challenge was, so the case you just won was the right to sue them because they challenged your ability to sue them, right?
So my ability to sue Yale and the administrators has never been challenged. So that's like, Yale is not even legally making the argument to pull themselves out. Only the girl made the argument. She filed a 12b6 motion to dismiss, saying that even if she has lied, she actually gets absolute immunity.
That's ridiculous. That's absolutely really ridiculous.
The district court judge agreed with her. And said for public policy reasons, she should be given absolute immunity.
That's bullshit, which by the way means public policy reasons means because I feel like it, not because it's the law, right?
Yeah. And she actually conceded in her order that she knows that the law is not fleshed out on this, so she's erring on the side of public policy that it just seems correct that the world
we should allow people to make these accusations wildly, and that's not going to have any problems. There's actually a $5 super chat here from Deha Ko who says it's cases like these that end up harming women who are actual victims of assault. Yale seems to care more about its endowment than the truth, and the same thing with the judge. By doing that, by going down that line of jurisprudence, you are literally promoting false claims. You are delegitimizing the process by allowing people to not have to stand by their accusations. So not have to say, okay, if I accuse somebody of a vicious, vile crime, I have to stand up and be confronted, right? That's the confrontation clause. You have the right to confront your accuser. That sounds like basic due process to me. Absolutely
Were,
nuts.
were there other comments as well, Andrew? Or
There's ones on Rumble, which I'll show them here real quick. I have to share the screen. Which is SC Medic, who says arrogant white female uninformed liberals equals awful. Thank you, SC Medic. And then SC Medic 71 also says, I've seen him, speaking you, Scythe, on other streams. Truly a brilliant individual. Once the suit is done, he should write a book. Yeah, you absolutely. So if you have a bright future ahead of you,
Thank you.
I can tell. And you're clearly a smart guy. I mean, number one, for making the smart choice to come on Legal Mindset in my show, but also just a smart guy in general, just talking to you. I can tell people that know what they're talking about and people who don't. You seem like you're a very intelligent guy, but also have a lot of practical experience and practical reality, which is good.
I have not actually uttered this out loud, and I generally don't tell people my future plans and ideas, but I will, I guess, make an exception here. I will be making an endowment. I'll relegate about 90% of my winnings and so on to create an endowment for, to defend the damned, to defend the despised. There are quite a number of broken aspects of the American judicial system. At the end of the day, I love America, and this country is worth fighting for. And so, while yes,
which is crazy. Despite all that stuff,
right.
You're willing to say that, and people don't realize that despite people trying to tell you America is evil, try to tell you that people are evil, you're like, nope, I love it, and I'm willing to help people defend them.
Yeah, I mean, like, I was born in a refugee camp, and that means that my parents sought refuge from war and difficulty. I'm not going to run away. I'm going to fight. And like, look, I will enjoy significant parts of the world, and there's so many different parts that have much better things to offer. And that is a fantastic choice to make, because sometimes, if the country is just not being appropriate and like just not treating people right, go where you're treated best. And so I guess this is home for me.
But I guess that's the thing. Because like, as a person who's abroad, as a person who went abroad, people say, I have to go back and say, look, the reason why I'm able to do what I do, the reason why I'm able to travel where I travel, the reason why I'm able to apply for visas and there's zero scrutiny is because I'm an American. Right. If I was an Afghani or a Somali or from Burma, right? And there's a lot of Burmese over here in Thailand, right? They look at me a lot differently when they see that different color passport. When they see that blue American passport, you get looked at a certain way. That's why you have to give credit where credit is due to America and what it was and what it is. There's a lot of benefits around the world, right? But America, our Constitution, and particularly as a lawyer, our due process are things that are worth fighting for. And so saying that, hey, I'm going to create an endowment to help people, have full due process, I 100% stand behind that because that's absolutely something that America needs. We need people to be defended in a time when nobody is supporting them. The mainstream media attacked you, right? The university attacked you, the student organizations. God, the students probably hated you on camp, like for the short period of time you were there, right before you were removed. I mean, they probably absolutely hated you.
People I've been annoying so many different organizations. So when the district court judge dismissed my defamation claim against the girl, the university and the administrator part of the lawsuit was totally fine. The girl part, I filed a 54B, which in the FRCP, Federal Rules for Civil Procedures, just means that it's a finalized outcome. And I took it to the Second Circuit, to the appellate court. And
for being able to sue the girl.
Right. I was like, hey, if you think this is what the law is, the law should be changed. Yeah. And the Second Circuit agreed with me. They largely changed the law. There were certain parts where they were confused. And so they sent questions to the Connecticut Supreme Court saying, hey, you know your state best. What are the laws of the Connecticut, on topics of defamation and quasi-judicial and absolute immunity, and whether it applies, and whether Yale was quasi-judicial. And the Connecticut Supreme Court says, our laws are clear in these ways. Yale is absolutely not quasi-judicial because they just don't have due process. Due process is fundamental. And they articulated all the various things that, help inform, the guardrails for due process. Right to cross-examine,
Confrontation, right? Confront them, cross-examine, evidence discovery, right?
Plethora
Counsel,
of
right? Your counsel, you hired, by the way, I noticed you hired Norm Pettis, who actually I'm very familiar with. He represented Alex Jones. He's represented a lot of other folks. He is a great guy. He's got actually a fantastic track record. He's won in very difficult circumstances. So when I saw you, Norm Pettis, I'm like, you got a fantastic lawyer. I mean, I don't know if you want to say anything about Norm, but like to me, that guy really knows his stuff.
Norm, he's one of the few people on planet Earth where if he tells me close your eyes, walk 3 steps forward, walk 2 steps left, I will do it. You know what I mean? Like I will blindly trust. He's also very intelligent, and beyond intelligence, I actually don't even know where he went to law school. What I love about Norm
Let me look it up.
is
It doesn't really matter. He knows
it
stuff.
doesn't
Whether
matter.
where he
It
goes to
doesn't
law school
matter.
doesn't matter.
What I care about with Norm is he's kind, loving, and loyal.
Mm-hmm.
He will do what is correct. He will fight the judge if that is what takes to do right by you.
Right.
And there are quite a number of attorneys who wouldn't care. They would rather keep the relationship with the judge or the prosecutor or with Yale. Norm is like, I don't care about Yale. I'll fight them.
Right. Fuck yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna fight them. Yeah. And which is by the way, how lawyers used to be and how lawyers used to be before they all sold out. But they should be willing to say, look, you are my client. My duty is to you. I am going to the ropes for you, right? I'm willing to fight the judge. I'm willing to fight whoever. I'm willing to fight because it deserves being fought, right? Like that's a battle that deserves being fought.
Exactly. And that's actually why he's the best lawyer for this specific job for me, is because I'm not like the Johnny Depp Amber Heard situation. It was largely factual in the sense that the Virginia state law and courts that applied, it was an important pivotal moment in the cultural zeitgeist. It did not leave precedence in a legal sense. My case is reshaping the jurisprudential nature of how to deal with these things. And so while it's not as big as New York Times v. Sullivan, it is massive in terms of yanking away a cornerstone, a pillar upon which false accusations rely on, which is absolute immunity. Because girls go around falsely accusing men, and institutions protect them, saying, well, nobody can do anything about it. But now, because of the precedents I've set, folks can go and sue. If you are a student in a Title IX proceeding and you're found guilty or responsible in that proceeding, you can now go sue the person. There's and that's why the New York Times and so many other outlets have been talking about my situation. And that's exactly why 15 national feminist organizations tried to stop me. They filed an amicus brief and saying, well, he's a rapist.
Right.
And
based on just purely, okay, here's her testimony and here's our opinion that he is
no, not even opinion. They said, and I actually filed a motion with the Connecticut Supreme Court to remove their amicus brief, and the Connecticut Supreme Court denied their brief.
That's so bad to have an amicus blown out. By the way, the standard for an amicus is so low. It is so low. It is so low. So to have an amicus thrown out, that's like throwing out like a thank you card. Like it's just so low. The standard is so low.
And the Supreme Court in their denial said,
shit. I haven't seen that in a while.
Yeah, you have permission to refile with what is the verbatim wording? They said to refile it shorn of facts not borne by the evidence. So they were saying facts that are not borne by the evidence, so shorn them of it. It's just legalese for saying cut out the parts that are false. And then the amici, they filed again, removing the sentences, calling me that word, and then it was accepted.
Oh man. Okay, I gotta get these $10 super sticker from Leprechaun Gold in support. Thank you so much, Leprechaun Gold. Torgo with $2 says, "Yes, I get that, but that's it's an inside joke. It's a supportive thing." But appreciate that. Jessica Reloaded says, "Thank you for this great interview. I gotta go now, but finish a little later. Just followed Syph on X and would love to donate to him." Yeah, you can follow him on X. He's on X. Go follow him. That's how he hit me up. So go talk to him on X, follow him on there. That's probably the best place to find you, right? The folks that want to find you. I know Danielle, my mod's been kind of posting your X in the chat so people can follow you there. And whatever you do in the future, they can, whatever you put out there, they can come follow, donate, whatever, follow what your cases, follow how things go. Obviously that's a great place to contact him.
Thank you.
And then two more from locals real quick. C3 Metal says, "Shame, never leave the condoms behind. Women are sketchy and will go try to do the prego trap." That was before the NBA. There was a point at which, Syph, I don't know if you heard this, but the NBA was telling its players to make sure to flush their condoms because women were extracting the baby batter and injecting themselves because they want to have a basketball player's kid. It was ridiculous. The Drake hot sauce incident where, the hot sauce in the condom. I mean, there's all sorts of, this was like, as MeToo was happening, it's ironic because that was happening as people were stepping up their attempts to essentially violate our liberties, right? Take our money, take our livelihood, and, end us in jail, right? So it's crazy.
I will flush condoms. I mean, generally, I don't like condoms.
Yeah, but well, and if it's your girlfriend or whatever, it's a different scenario, right? But that being said, yeah, that's a good one. T Park says for $15 sent. Hopefully, you can use this to enhance your whiskey supply. Yes, I will get new whiskey soon. Don't worry about it. In fact, T Park, I swear tonight I'll go. Actually, I'll get new alcohol because I'll just switch it up. I'll whiskey something else. So Ben SC $5 says, "As a paramedic, I can testify that his blood flow has been diverted to his southernmost head." Yes. We're not remembering colors when we're thinking with the other head. But I also found, by the way, one of my supporters. This is how good they are, Syph. They sent me the article. Right away here, and I just want to I want to show people this article. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I just want to read this first part because this is fucking crazy. So let's just the first 3 paragraphs here. So yesterday, Saifullah, Khan was acquitted of all charges of sexual assault. He had been charged with sex with a woman who was too drunk to give consent. He claimed the sex was consensual. Only afterwards, he claims, did she rewrite the narrative of their encounter. Oh shoot, did my camera go off? Okay, well, whatever. I'll read this in a second. But in the light of this verdict, I'll do this. In the light of this verdict, Khan's lawyer said that Yale should readmit Khan after he was suspended in November of 2015, 3 days before his arrest. The lawyer, Norm Pattis, said the university should right that wrong and welcome Khan back into the community. Readmitting Khan would be a grievous mistake, as using legal standards of not guilty do not apply in a private community like Yale. Legal acquittal does not mean innocence. Wow. So what did you think when you read that? Well, I'm fixing my camera here. Let me know what you thought about that.
I mean, I largely genuinely laughed at not just the facetiousness of just bad logic. And by the way, a lot of these reporters who wrote about me here ended up just working at the New York Times and at Politico and elsewhere. They used me as their launching.
You're their single topic, right? They literally grifted off of you in order to blast off and into their future of just writing stuff like this, but now doing it for the New York Times instead of doing
journalism awards for writing about me, actually. And so it is just crazy what I was dealing with. But it was funny because the craziness seemed easy to defeat because it showed that all I have to do, I actually don't have to be intelligent to defeat these folks. I don't have to be intelligent. All I have to do is have my evidence and present it. It's just, truth is so powerful. And that's all I have to do. And that
Yeah.
is shocking and funny to me, where these people can make such twisted logic, like, well, not guilty, and like this is what like, oh well, and she goes on to talk about like how these jurors are old and like they're out of touch and they don't understand what's
Well, and
horrible.
they make yeah, as soon as they don't win, they call them old, out of touch, conservative,
Right.
whatever. They use all the pejorative words for it as soon as it doesn't go their way, right? It's whenever it doesn't go their way, they find some form of cope, which is attack due process, attack the legal system, attack the truth, right?
Yeah.
Because they cannot handle the truth because it disrupts their worldview.
And then when you overcome that, one of the worst arguments I get then is, oh, well, but what about the 10,000 years of history of women getting, assaulted?
What the fuck does it have to do with the truth of this individual instance? So leave it, even presuming that, which by the way, I debate every day, and I'm not asking you to do it. We don't need to go there, but like I debate every day that history. I think that history is horribly revisionist.
And
to say that women up till today, every woman was being assaulted, right? And it was all assault until today. That is such hubris. It is such revisionism.
Yeah.
It's insanity.
And I get told, take one for the team.
Take one. Take what? A criminal charge for the team?
I've been told so often by people saying, well, just let the girl go. Drop the charges against the girl. Like,
no, she's a liar. She's a Jussie Smollett. She's never. I mean, this is like, why would you drop it? You're standing. In fact, you got to tell them you're doing this for women to be believed. In order for women to be believed, for real people with real claims to be believed, you need to sort out the liars so that you say, when people bring a claim, they know there's consequences. They are criminals. Lying to police, lying to Yale police, lying to the court, lying to your attorney. That's a crime. That's perjury, by the way. Right? So
is a doctor right now.
She's a doctor?
She got into medical school using
this woman
story.
Is a doctor. This is this woman is a doctor who is out there in America, probably giving people the jab, but out there just 100%. Oh God, I can't see that. The doctor-patient relationship. And look, somebody who has that pattern of lying to people in a position of confidence like a doctor, that is actually legitimately scary. Like, honestly, to me, holy fuck.
She is currently in the lawsuit, Jane Doe.
Still, even though she's age of majority, she's this and that, she's still Jane Doe.
For public policy reasons. And so
public policy reasons. Yeah.
It's such a bad term. Yeah, I hate it. And so as soon as it's remanded back from Second Circuit to District Court, I will be filing a motion to name her. And I will be informing the medical licensing board. And I will be informing the medical school that she lied on her applications. The story she has said to you to get in to your school, it was a lie. Now, I don't have high hopes of, institutions changing their systems, but I'm not going to drop the suit. I'm not going to take one for the team.
No. You shouldn't take one for the team. You should absolutely. This is doing it for the team. This is doing it for those people, whether they realize that or not. I mean, I very much believe that this is something that needs to be done. This is something that is important. It's an important fight, and it's an important fight that needs to be carried forward for you and for all men. Right? Leonardo DiCaprio said, "It's reasons like your story that makes me want to become a defense attorney." Laughing my ass off. Women are so strong, independent, and equal that they have to have society protect them from the big, scary world. Really, man. Facts are, these are slam dunk legal wins. But honestly, Leonardo, you worry that they're not going to be slam dunk legal wins always, even cases like Saf's, if he didn't have all that it proved. And think about it. You were actually really benefited by the fact you were on campus where there's cameras, where there's card swipes. Imagine if you were just a normal guy working a regular everyday job and you were dealing with your house where you may not have cameras. You probably don't have a card swipe on your home, right? You don't have your level of proving her bullshit. It becomes way harder to prove this case with the level of factual detail.
And I did some important things, like I didn't talk to the police. I didn't talk to Yale. I kept my mouth shut. And I didn't spew stuff out in the media. Even right now, I'm only talking about stuff that's in the past. Like right now, I'm essentially on social media, but I'm not delving too deep into anything that's too out into the future.
Yeah,
And so
we're not speculating on the future. We're just talking about the past. We're reviewing what happened
right,
because that's the factual scenario,
right,
right? We're not engaging in too much speculation.
exactly. And so, yeah, it's those are important things that's sad and scary. Where a lot of young men, and some of those young men, by the way, are not with us these days.
Because they commit suicide due to these allegations and they're so ashamed by them. And I've heard
I,
multiple, especially by the way, Seth, folks that are in that category of the poorer side and they come over to America and they're leveled on this and they've got people telling them there's INS, they're going to be deported, particularly if they're from a conservative family, right? I've had folks that I represented when I was at University of Florida. I worked at the immigration clinic and I've had people, conservative Muslim background, where they got caught drinking or smoking pot. And they're like crying to me, like, do not tell my parents, you know? And,
it's I heavily resonate with that. My parents didn't talk to me for years because Yale forcibly called my parents, and they informed them of alcohol and premarital sex and so on. And I almost jumped from that bridge. I actually
yeah,
walked up to a bridge and I almost jumped. And what I would have become was, just another statistic.
yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, I would have.
And that's
Yeah,
common for a lot of guys. A lot of guys get there and they do it because that's guys. They just, if we're like, all right, well, I'm going to do this and do it. Most male suicides are not attempts. They're successful. So that's the difference between male and female suicide statistics. Females attempt more, but don't actually commit. Men actually commit. But especially in these scenarios are the things that trigger it. If you look at the basis for it, a lot of times it's this, which is horrible. But what you're doing right now is so important to keep guys knowing there is hope. You can fight back. You can do this. If you did this coming from Afghanistan, coming from a refugee camp, you fought this, you beat the system, you beat the universities, right? And you're still in the process of suing Yale, right? So, right, that's not concluded yet, but
right.
you've already beat them at multiple steps along the way. And with great legal counsel like Norm Pettis, you've got a hell of a shot of taking this thing to the finish line.
And that's why it's often perceived as something very difficult, because society wants to make you believe that defamation suits are difficult to win and this and that. It's actually not that difficult, because credibility goes a long way. If somebody can go to prison on the mere words of a person, um, for example, the Danny Masterson case, is just one. Were you aware of that, Andrew?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so
I'm aware of it now. I will say, like, I didn't do a deep dive on it.
got it.
So I'm not like aware of all the facts, but I think one of the things that was concerning about that from a legal standard, my biggest concern with the Danny Masterson case was they allowed alleged victims that were not proven at trial to speak against them during sentencing, which I think is ridiculous. And that is a gross violation of due process,
Right.
because these people were not proven to have actually been victims. They may have been false
Right.
victims, false claims. So they have no right at all to be there, except for we've changed a lot of laws regarding SA and, all sorts of SASV, anything involving sexual whatever. You just say it's that and different rules apply, which I think is horrible law. I think
Right.
it's horrible policy to say I can say it's a type of crime and suddenly my due process goes away,
Right.
because you go down this aisle. For example, with non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, you can have an NDA, but the second someone says it relates to anything sexual, the NDA can be freely broken.
It's horrible carve out, and that's actually the exact carve out that I've been working hard towards getting out, conceptually from the system and practically. Look, at the end of the day, why are we even allowing colleges to adjudicate this crime?
Period. Yeah.
Right.
Period.
Should we allow 7-Eleven to adjudicate SA if it happens in their store?
Yeah.
Why should Yale also then adjudicate murder? Should they adjudicate arson? What about tax fraud? Should Yale adjudicate tax fraud? Right? Like,
I mean, I get they have ethical codes, and like if you're part of a profession, you get to sign up for that, right? You sign up for an ethical code,
Right.
but once again, if the university is going to make a decision to expel somebody, to remove somebody, they can make that at an administrative level. You don't need to have these trials, whatever else, right? These sort of kangaroo courts
Right.
That they've set up right now. That's certainly not the right procedure. Particularly, by the way, since a lot of these things involve heavy student participation. My big issue with Honor Court was that it was all students. It was fellow students. What the fuck did they know about anything? These aren't experienced. They don't know anything. And my case was actually ridiculous. I'll say this real quick. So this is my case. So a professor told us that we need to get an example of a local government in a grant program. It was like a local government grant program that was successful. So I took this grant program that was successful. Oh gosh, my camera's going crazy today. I'll just go with this. My Kim Jong Andrew. My professor said, hey, look, you can use any source you want. You can pull off the internet, just cite it, right? You can completely just pull this case study off the internet site. So I said, okay, fine. So I cited this, but I forgot to put parentheses, but I cited it at the end of it with a footnote, right? And I cited everything in the footnote. And so she reports me to the honor court for plagiarism, and she has an individual conversation with me, and she's like, oh, well, I don't think it's plagiarism. I'm going to report you. And then a bunch of people who know nothing about anything are like, wait a second, like these aren't experts on plagiarism. They're experts on citation. These are just regular dudes. These are just other students. Of course, I was not guilty of anything. I was fine. But I was like, my experience with that was like, this is freaking kangaroo court. And I asked them, like, do I get an attorney? No, not really. No, you don't get anybody to really represent you. You just got to go in there and, kind of wing it yourself. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's absurd. And that's why, like, we should have very little in the Euler diagram. It's not a Venn diagram here. It will be an Euler diagram, like as minimal of overlap in that, between the circles, between what is crime and what is the jurisdiction of the university of what they should be adjudicating on. And so, it's not exactly double jeopardy, but at the very little that we could have scenarios where, two processes can result in two different outcomes. We should, reduce that. And that's the juxtaposition that occurred in my case, where one procedure which had due process had one outcome. And another procedure which had zero due process had an entirely different outcome.
So wow, surprise, surprise, surprise. That one that had no due process had a different outcome, right?
Right. And so that juxtaposition is actually squarely the debate, and it's contested, and it just highlights. And this is partially why the media is so abuzz about what do we do as a society? How do we deal with these issues? And there's war going on this.
It's an absolute war. And I got a couple of comments here. So over on locals, C3 Metal says, fight the crazed women and beat them in court. Yes, absolutely. This is a battle that needs to be taken to court. More folks need to do what you're doing and take this to court and say, look, we're not standing for this. Like, this is not acceptable. We're challenging these people in court and we're calling them out. Ted Kovranek, the second, says, crazy exes dumpster dive for used condoms. Still flush. Yes, good job, Ted. Keep your crazy exes away. Torgo says, she broke the 9th commandment. Thou shalt not bear false witness. Do not let her escape. She needs to be taken to the cleaners. No, absolutely. I mean, it's something where as a person, particularly for a person that is a doctor, right? This is something that is unacceptable. This is a version of the truth that is unacceptable. This is a point in which someone should come out and say, you know what? I'm sorry. I was a kid. I was dumb. I was young. I lied. I was under pressure. Come out and tell the truth, because I'd be more sympathetic of a woman who comes out and tells the truth and tries to stand behind a lie. Right.
And that's actually a salient and poignant point you've pointed out, Andrew, that at the end of the day, I was actually willing to accept that, if it was just her, and
just her,
it was, because look, there humans come in all sorts of flavors. Diversity implies also that there are some really stupid humans and some bad humans and so on. And if it was just her causing me harm, I would have actually largely moved on and forgiven her individually. The problem was that the institution went so harshly. They put their grubby fingers on the scale of justice. They wanted specific outcomes. They were not a neutral party. This wasn't merely just lack of due process. They wanted a specific outcome. There was huge campus pressure against me. There was a petition against me. 77,000 people signed it. And it had all sorts of horrible comments against me about me and my family and so on. And that's the pressure that Yale caved under.
Yes.
And so this is why
the crazy mob, which isn't even, by the way, a lot of those people don't even know what they're signing. They're just signing whatever, right? Someone shoves a paper in front of them and they sign it, or they're not even real signatures, which is another issue.
Yeah, and it's horrendous, and especially because these topics have been given a taboo status that exalts them to a level where it is considered really, really horrible. And yeah, it's I don't want to say much further.
Yeah, no. That's enough. And actually, that's where we were actually about an hour past where I thought we were going to go. But It's actually a fantastic conversation. But Saif, people can find you and continue this conversation, engage with you on X. Let me pull up your profile here.
I respond to everybody. Yeah.
Is there anywhere else? Is that the best place? Is there anywhere else other than X where people can find you or interact with you or anything you want to call their attention to?
I mainly just use Twitter for this sort of stuff. I mean, otherwise I have WhatsApp, but I keep that for people who get really close to me, friends and family.
Sure.
So I respond to everybody on X, and
So here's your X right over here. So Saif_Khan. DMs. 2 underscores Khan. And you've got your information here, your gifts and go, all your other stuff here. So you've got everything over here for people to follow you and follow up with that. And absolutely, Saif, I'll be clear, I'm happy to follow up with you in the future as these things develop and kind of get a little quick update. Hey, like what happened with your case? Because I think it's absolutely it's one of the most egregious cases, but they screwed up because they went against you and they went against a smart, capable individual who's rational thinking. So that's who's got the truth on his side. And ultimately, some people say, and this is a case that deserves revenge. There's no revenge here. This is justice. This is due process, right? It's not revenge. It's due process. It's justice.
Right. Yeah, I think, and thank you for the compliments. I often get like folks, on the internet saying like, wow, you're able to give Yale such a big blow. And I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm not doing much. They're doing it to themselves. Like, I'm arguing on the side of due process. I'm going up to judges and saying due process good. And Yale is going up to judges saying due process bad. And those judges have dedicated their lives to due process. It's just surprisingly an easy victory. And it's this fear, this terror, as one of your commentators earlier pointed out. Fight it, stay strong, and sue back, and fight them hard.
And you can win. Like if you fight back, like you can win. You can beat these crazy people. All right, guys. So thank you much, everybody in the chat. S is in the chat for Saif. There, guys. Make sure you like the stream. Leave a comment what you think about this. If you really like, if you want to see Saif back on in the future for an update. Also, guys, real quick, I have a members only stream on YouTube tomorrow. That's coming up. Also, we have a Rumble exclusive tonight. So if you guys want actually in 30 minutes over to Rumble, you can head over there for an exclusive hangout. Very casual night tonight on Rumble as well. So you guys can hang out for that. A lot of S's. You guys see people dropping S's in the chat like crazy. Also soju bottles because soju begins.
Thank you so much for having
me. People
Andrew.
love this.
Pleasure.
It's been a pleasure, man. Take care and good luck with your flight. You're in the airport, so good luck there. And I will catch you later, brother.
All right. Have a wonderful night. Bye-bye.
Bye.